From the second you wake up, your world is just throwing signals at you. A red light, a news headline, the look on our friend's face, it's nonstop. We spend our whole lives basically being decoders, figuring out what it all means. But have you ever stopped to think, how do we actually do that? Seriously, think about it. How do we all just agree on what things mean? It's one of the biggest, most fundamental mysteries of being human, if you ask me. And to solve a really good mystery, you're going to need a detective. And for this particular case, the case of meaning itself, there is absolutely no one better for the job than the Italian intellectual powerhouse, Umberto Eco. This guy literally spent his entire life cracking the code of how we make sense of the world. Now, chances are you've probably heard his name. He wrote The Name of the Rose, that brilliant best-selling novel, the murder mystery set in a creepy medieval monastery. That was him.
But here's the twist, and it's a good one. The novelist thing, that was almost his cover story. Eco's real mission, his life's work, was as a semiotician. That's a master theorist who investigates the very nuts and bolts of how we create meaning. He was basically living a double life, part storyteller, part master codebreaker.
All right, so how did our detective get to work? Well, like any good investigator, he had a special toolkit. So let's crack it open and take a look at the secret rules he used to understand all these signs around us. At the very core of his toolkit is this one big idea: semiotics. Now, it sounds kind of academic, I know, but put simply, it's the study of signs. But it's more than that, really. It's an investigation into the deep fabric of how a culture communicates with itself. And this leads us to one of his most powerful tools, the idea of codes. Eco argued that meaning isn't just magically inside an object. No, it's created by a set of shared, unwritten rules, these codes, that we all learn just by being part of our culture. This is the perfect example. A red rose, it's a plant, right? It's got petals and a stem, but because of a super powerful cultural code that we all share, we see it and we instantly think love, romance, passion. The meaning isn't in the petals, it's in the code. And these codes, man, they are everywhere. Eco started cataloging them. You've got the most obvious ones, like linguistic codes. These are just the rules of language, right? The word dog doesn't look or sound like a dog, but we've all agreed on what it represents. That's a code in action. Then you've got the cultural codes. Think about all the unwritten rules of daily life. How you shake someone's hand, how close you stand when you're talking, what's okay to wear to a wedding. That's all governed by powerful, invisible codes. And of course, in art and movies, you have aesthetic codes. This is how you know you're watching a horror film instead of a comedy within the first 30 seconds. The dark lighting, the creepy music, the camera angles, it's all part of the horror codebook. And finally, we get to the deepest level, ideological codes. These are the huge frameworks, the beliefs that shape what an entire society thinks is natural or true. Ideas about success, family, freedom. These are the most powerful codes of all, precisely because we usually don't even see them.
So we've got the signs, and we've got the codes that help us read them, but there's one more crucial piece to this puzzle. According to Eco, it's you. The person doing the interpreting plays a secret, super active role in actually making the meaning happen.
So, to explain this, Eco came up with this great distinction between closed and open works. A stop sign, that's a closed work. It has one single, fixed meaning, stop. But a work of art like the Mona Lisa's mysterious smile, that's an open work. It's specifically designed to invite questions, to spark a whole range of possible interpretations. So how does an open work guide us without just becoming total chaos? Well, Eco came up with this brilliant concept of the model reader. Now, this isn't a real person. It's the ideal role that the text itself creates for you, the reader. To get a joke, for example, you have to become the model reader who understands all the cultural references in the setup. In a way, the text itself is teaching you how to read it properly. Okay, so our brains are constantly using all these codes to interpret everything. But where is all this stuff stored? Where do all these meanings and codes live? Eco had this fantastic metaphor for it. He said our cultural knowledge isn't like a simple dictionary with one fixed definition for every word. No way. It's way more like a gigantic, messy, totally interconnected encyclopedia. When we interpret a sign, we're not just looking up one little entry. We're navigating this vast, sprawling web of associations, memories, and countless other signs.
Now, with all this talk about open works and giant encyclopedias, you might be starting to think, okay, so a text can just mean whatever I want it to mean. But this is where our detective Eco put his foot down, hard. There are limits.
And this is really the million-dollar question, isn't it? If meaning is so flexible and open, does that just mean it's a total free-for-all? Can you just make things up? And Eco's answer was a firm, passionate no. He argued that interpretation has to have limits. While a text can be open to many different readings, it is not open to every reading. The text's own structure and that shared cultural encyclopedia we have create boundaries. To put it bluntly, some interpretations are just plain wrong. For Eco, the freedom to interpret always goes hand in hand with responsibility. So after a long and incredible career, what's the final legacy of our detective of meaning? Well, the impact of his toolkit is just enormous, and people are still using it today across so many different fields.
I mean, his influence is just massive. In literature, he showed everyone how novels work as these elaborate, fascinating playgrounds of signs. In media studies, he was a trailblazer, taking pop culture figures like Superman and James Bond seriously, showing that they can reveal just as much about our culture as any classic text. And in philosophy, he was the guy building bridges, connecting different schools of thought, always focused on that central puzzle of meaning. And if you had to boil his entire life's work down to a single sentence, this quote would have to be it. Semiosis, that's just the fancy term for the process of making meaning, can go on forever, always creating new connections. But, and this is the key, it isn't random. It follows rules. It has a structure. It's this beautiful, perfect balance between infinite possibility and intelligent order. In the end, Umberto Eco gave all of us the detective's toolkit. He showed us the codes, he pointed out the clues, and he explained the rules of the game. He taught all of us how to be detectives of meaning in our own lives. So the only question left isn't for him, it's for you. Now that you have the tools, what secrets are you going to find hiding in plain sight?